Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to the video on the channel. Today's video, we're going to preview Group C for World Cup Qatar 2022. If you're new to the channel, any support is greatly appreciated. Had lots of support in recent videos. Really grateful for that. On the push to 50 subscribers before Christmas, so any support would be greatly appreciated. And if you've missed out on any videos currently in Groups A or Group B or our preview video for the World Cup Fantasy League 2022, links will be in the description below. Let's get into it. So we're going to preview the group overall. And as we get the group and fixtures up there, this is really Argentina's group to lose. It is a tight group. Saudi Arabia aren't necessarily going to be the complete underdogs that we anticipate them to be. And Poland and Mexico are definitely neck and neck for, various strengths and weaknesses. But I, at the moment, am leaning towards Argentina as my favourites to win the whole competition. So let's analyse each team. So we start with Saudi Arabia, and they've got the group there, and they qualified pretty strong, to be honest, ahead of Japan and Australia. And they've been unbeaten in their last five friendlies, including draws with the USA and Ecuador, teams we've previewed already, and are pretty decent. They also only conceded one goal in those five games and beat Japan and Australia in qualifying. And both teams have pretty good history and pedigree in the World Cup there. So, tactical analysis, what are Saudi Arabia like to play? They do like to get in behind the opposition. They're not afraid of giving it a go, and they have got a lot of pace out wide and up front that they do use to exploit the gaps in behind. They tend to use a 4-2-3-1 in qualifying, but then in the World Cup friendlies have experimented with the 4-3-3. Their high defensive line could leave them vulnerable at the back, especially against some of the severe attacking threats that the teams in their group uh, possess. And could this approach and lack of flexibility with it cost them early on? So potential players now, you might not be looking for Saudi Arabia players. They might not be the first people you think of when you're looking at creating your fantasy league team. But Salim Ad here is pretty good, to be honest. And he scored in the last World Cup. He's got that previous history, and he was voted most valuable player at the 2021 Asian Champions League. He is Saudi Arabia's most important player, and he is someone that is going to be in amongst any goals that are scored for his team. And at 4.5 million, why not have him on the bench? Could come in and potentially nick a goal or two. Next up, we've got Al Barakin. He is another forward, only 22 years old, and his price is to be confirmed. I can't imagine it being more than 4.5 million, to be honest. And he has scored winning goals against Japan, Oman, and China. And he's quite a good passer as well, links up well with the wide men for Saudi Arabia. The manager is a big favourite of this guy. But the general consensus of the media and the fans is that they shouldn't rely on him. So it's a little bit of manager versus public in terms of his selection. But if the manager likes him, he's going to play, and he has shown in bits and pieces that he can perform quite well. Obviously, a small sample size with him being so young, but the World Cup is that sort of stage where a player can burst out of nowhere onto the main scene and contribute. Next up, we've got Al Faraj. He's a 33-year-old midfielder. He is club captain for his club and international captain as well, and he is really cheap at 4 million. He's a box-to-box threat that he gets about one shot a goal on goal per game, and averages about 2.1 passes in behind the defensive line, which is quite a good statistic really for a defensive midfielder, and he breaks up about two opponents' attacks per game. So if you're looking at those tackling points, here's someone maybe who's really cheap, enables you to get more expensive players in. You would think Saudi Arabia maybe going to be defending quite a lot in this very difficult group. Could he get you a few extra points for those tackles and interceptions? Next up, we've got Mexico. Um, a pretty okay qualifying group to look at that, but they've come under a lot of criticism recently because of inconsistent form, and manager Martino's under quite a lot of pressure from the public. They've actually It's an incredible record, really. Made it to the last 16 of the past 7 World Cups, but in all of those World Cups, they got knocked out at the last 16 stage, which is a crazy record, really. You don't think you could, um, have that record even if you tried. But they have won the Gold Cup, the North American Gold Cup in 2019, and came second in 2021. Um, so they have got some international history recently of players performing well. Tactical analysis. So some players are missing through injury. So I know Jesus, who plays for Mexico on the right wing. He's injured, I think, for Mexico in the World Cup, and they'll almost definitely play a 4-3-3 regardless. And we've talked about how Martino's under pressure, and his reluctance to maybe move away from this formation is not exactly helping that. But if you've got a tried and tested method and you believe in that approach, why not stick with it? So, potential players you could pick in your fantasy league teams from Mexico, and we're starting with Irving Lozano. He's Napoli's tricky winger, but he's Mexico's main man. He's good for a goal every 4 games, and he creates plenty of chances. To be honest, he's got bags of pace, and he will take on players all day long. And Mexico rely on him for his width and playmaking. Next up, we've got a goalkeeper, Ochoa. This is his 5th World Cup. He's got about 130 caps for Mexico, and he is someone you might have seen in the past. He's quite recognisable, but he's a good penalty saver here and a good shot stopper as well, with quick reflexes. And you think he could get possible clean sheets against teams like Saudi Arabia and the Poland side, who Poland have historically gone missing in big tournaments, and it could make him quite appealing and an underrated keeper for your fantasy league team. Finally, we've got Alvarez. He's an all-action midfielder, and despite focusing on the defensive side of the ball, he's chipped in with 3 goals for Mexico. And look out for those tackle points as he shields the defence from the likes of Lewandowski and Messi. Up next, we've got Poland, and they came behind England in second place in their qualifying group. Not too bad, really, but they had to beat Sweden in the playoffs. And just before they had that Swedish matchup, they hired a new coach, Mishinowicz, and he actually guided them through that playoff match. They're trying to overcome the 2018 disappointment. Um, they got knocked out in the group stages of the 2018 World Cup, and they didn't really perform at all. Uh, Tactical analysis, they like to take control of games. Um, they don't tend to sit back. They tend to keep the ball, dominate possession, and they do actually vary the system depending on opponents as well. We talked about teams like Mexico who are quite rigid with, the formation strategy that you're using. Poland tend to vary it, so that might make them an interesting team to watch in the World Cup. And he allows players plenty of freedom to go out and express themselves, which could potentially lead to lots of chances from an attacking point of view, but maybe might leave them a bit exposed at the back. So potential players for Poland, and we start obviously with Robert Lewandowski. Now, he has got 76 goals in 134 games for Poland, and when he was in the Bundesliga in Germany for Bayern and for Dortmund, he scored 312 goals in 384 Bundesliga games. But the most surprising statistic of them all is perhaps that he's not scored in a World Cup, and he had 3 games to do so in 2018, but he just couldn't find the back of the net. And like we said, Poland as a team weren't overall great then, but they are going to be on it trying to rectify that. And Lewandowski, this could be his last World Cup. He's 34, and he was going to want to go out having scored at least 1 goal in a World Cup, and you would like to think that could change. Next up, we've got Grigoriak. He's a 6 million midfielder, and he was known when he used to play for PSG. He was known as the lumberjack during his time in France, and he's destined to get you tackle points. He plays with so much passion and commitment, but he's probably also likely to get you a yellow card or two. But that is, worth taking into account if you're looking at getting him into your team. But you can't question that commitment, and he's also quite a proven passer from deep, trying to break that midfield and defensive line. Finally, we've got Zielinski here, 6.5 million midfielder, and he's got over 300 appearances and over 40 goals for Napoli. He's currently got just over 70 caps and 9 goals for Poland, but he pulls the strings in this attacking midfield. And if Lewandowski scores, chances are he's assisting them. Finally, we've got Argentina, saved this team to last, and they had a pretty good qualifying campaign, undefeated, which is quite hard to do, especially in South America when you're going to places like Bolivia, who have such an altitude advantage playing so high up, and you play in teams like Brazil and Uruguay as well, who have world class players. So they actually won Copa America in 2021. It was Messi's first international trophy, and they kind of got over the hump of that disappointment and the pressure on them, to get Messi that international victory. Um, well, since Scaloni took over, he's really moved away from the stars mentality. I think in the past, Argentina have really been focused on those individual talents and relying on those to get through games. But right now, he does have a much more positive group with a settled lineup. He tends to know who's playing where, and it is more team based rather than star heavy. Having said that, they are still built around Messi. But I mean, if you had Messi in your team and you didn't build around him, you know, what are you playing at really? But it's a more balanced, measured, and calm approach. And I think Messi isn't that player that he used to be athletically. Obviously, he's still world class and one of the best players in the world. But I think having him in that number 10 role and surrounding him with younger, more hungry players rather than maybe stars with a bit of an ego. I think that helps the team dynamic, and they really could make a deep run at this World Cup. So potential players, and it's no shock to say that Messi is first on this list. Um, I think he plays a central role for Argentina in the number 10 spot, and he's been in incredible form for PSG this season. This is probably going to be his last chance for a World Cup. I think he's 35 right about now. So, when the next World Cup rolls around, he might still be playing. He might be, in the squad age 39, but this is going to be his last chance. And can they build on that final defeat from 2014? Next up, we've got Emiliano Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper, and he's not actually on the game yet. He will be because he's in the squad, and I predict about a 5 million price range for him. He's a brilliant penalty saver, and he's undisputed first choice for Argentina. He's in form both in club and internationally, and he's got experience of winning because he was part of that Copa America 2021 victory. And you can't really underestimate the power of being there and doing it with an international team. Scaloni, the manager, actually had success winning an under 20 tournament with Argentina as well when he was under 20 manager before he got this job. So they've got that, know how of getting through tournaments and grinding it out, which I think is absolutely vital for a successful World Cup. Finally, we've got Christian Romero. He's the Spurs defender, 5.5 million, and he's dominant in the air, uh, brilliant at one-on-one defending, and he brings the ball out and has this technical ability to play it as well. So they're my three players that I would get from Argentina. Let me know what you think about the video. Going to try and continue the series for the rest of this week. Group D, coming out very shortly. But thank you for all the support. Really do appreciate it. Likes and subscribes. Get us over 50 subs before Christmas. That would be amazing. And I will see you in the next one.